Hi, beautiful ones. My intention with the Shamangelic Healing podcast is to be a platform that explores real-life issues and provides you with valuable insights and practical tools to support you on your journey of healing core wounds and reclaiming your power and manifesting a thriving, impactful life that you absolutely love. You see, it's my dream to inspire millions to shine. So if you find these topics valuable, please take a moment and share the podcast and leave us a rave review. This helps the podcast grow and reach the people that would greatly benefit from these insights. Thank you so much for tuning in and investing in your personal development. I'm right here walking this journey with you. So let's dive into this episode. Welcome to this episode of the Shamangelic Healing podcast. Special treat in the house, beautiful soul brother, Darren Waller. And I just met you this last week when you came here to Sedona.
Yep.
And, with your buddy and business partner, co-podcaster, Donnie Starkins, and you came for a Shamangelic breathwork journey, ceremony, experience. And what we're diving into today is your comeback story. It is an epic, heroic journey that I know will inspire everybody. I think there's something for everybody here in your journey, your vulnerable share about overcoming addiction and then finding yourself again. And your whole journey is so inspiring. And for those listening and watching, I want you to go follow Darren Waller. Of course, he's an NFL tight end, so you can watch him playing for the Raiders. And also his foundation, the Darren Waller Foundation, which I'm just so honored to support and give a shout out for, which is helping youth overcome addiction and learn the tools so that they don't even go down the path of drugs and alcohol. And you're sharing these stories so that your foundation is amazing. And so yes, to go supporting that. And we'll have the link in the bio for that. But also one of the things that is, you're co-podcasting with our dear buddy, Donnie Starkins, about comeback stories and other people that are journeying, overcoming addiction or other challenges. And so I am so excited to have you on the show. And it's just the beginning. And I love you dearly and respect so much the human that you are and what you've been through to light the way for others.
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be here, number one. And also it feels like I know you. I feel like I've known you for way longer than just a few days now, and that just speaks to experience that we had in your home in Sedona a few days ago, something that I will never forget. So it's just amazing to be here. And I appreciate just the love that radiates from you in everything that you do. It's inspiring.
Oh, thank you, brother. And it's kindred. Like from the beginning, we just started with a vulnerable sharing of, hey, what's up? And I really respected that you were honest and transparent and vulnerable, and that we just built a rapport and trust to be able to hold space for each other. And especially because you are in the limelight and you are addressing issues very, very vulnerably that most people hide in the closet and don't want to talk about. Your story was very public. And for those that don't know, can you give us a little soundbite about your journey? And then we want to start with where it began. So give people a little soundbite and then we'll break it down.
Yeah. So I'm Darren Waller. I am recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I will be sober for 4 years on August 12th, 2021. And a brief snapshot. I grew up in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. Started using drugs when I was 15, just trying to cope with everything that I was dealing with. And, didn't know how quick I was addicted to it and just started choosing my disease over so many promising opportunities and relationships and things like that. Ultimately, got suspended from the NFL for a year, and 2 months after that suspension was handed out, still using drugs and ended up overdosing. And that ended up being the last day that I used, and went to treatment after that, and, got reinstated to the team I was on before. Things didn't really work out there, but I got to a new team, which is the Raiders, and things have been amazing ever since. The things that have been happening in my career as of late are just mind blowing to me, because I never thought they were even close to possible, and to even have an impact and a voice that people can take inspiration from, or just things that I really struggle to wrap my mind around to this day, because it's just like, from where I was to now is just an unbelievable transformation. So yeah, that's it in a brief snapshot, without going into too much detail yet.
It's, first of all, congratulations on knocking on 4 years sober. That is not an easy journey. And, it deserves a pause, because when you've been that addicted for so long, to break the patterns, and you certainly had the opportunity in the downward spiral, getting kicked out of the NFL from, not passing drug tests and so forth, understanding that you would have to hit more of a rock bottom, dealing with guilt and shame, depression and embarrassment of that. And so the fact that you chose life, and you chose to get help, and you chose to turn it around, is hugely inspiring, because that's where a lot of people, or when it's that overwhelming, check the checkout box, like check out, like overdose becomes goodbye. Right. And you and I both know plenty of people that has happened to, whether that's in the public or whether those are in our circle, and whether those are other professional athletes, or people in the limelight, or everyday people that just can't deal with overcoming their addiction. And so I just want to, first of all, acknowledge the strength and the vulnerability, and, the work that it takes to turn that around. And it also feels like you're on top of the world, and that you're blowing your own mind about what is possible.
Right.
I mean, where you were just 5 years ago to where you are now, that's pretty powerful. So we're going to get to your low. But I want to start with 15, when you started using, for me, it was 12. So what was going on at the time where drugs or alcohol became the thing that you reached for? Like, what were you feeling? What was happening around where you didn't have another option or another tool to go to deal with your emotions or your challenges?
Yeah. So to preface that, I had plans on not smoking or drinking. I was like, I'm going to go the straight and narrow, I'm not going to do that. But, from a very young age, I cared a lot about what people thought, and I was very sensitive. And, what was brought to my attention was that apparently, I wasn't black enough, according to people of my skin color. Most of the friends I originally made when we first got to Georgia were white, but it wasn't by choice. It was like they were outside playing sports and moving around like I wanted to move, so I was hanging out with them. But I used to get made fun of for that. Like, why do I talk that way? Why you talk like this? Why do you dress like this? Why do you care so much about school? And things like that just really bothered me from, elementary school into middle school. And, one of the things that, I uncovered before coming to see you, I went to just go eat down the street, and I went and sat in there, didn't bring my phone inside, and all of a sudden I was overcome by this memory of when I was in 6th grade, and I had like a girlfriend at the time or whatever. And there was this little teen nightclub place that we used to go hang out and things like that. And I go to the club, and the girl that I was dating was with somebody else. And it was just like very embarrassing, very, very hurtful. And so from that moment forward, I was like, how do I move forward without having to feel that way again? And I was willing to go to great lengths. And one of those lengths was putting all of my worth and identity in football, because I knew that being in the South, people would appreciate me or respect me because I played football and was good at it. But even early on in high school, like when I turned 15 years old, I was very small, a lot smaller than everybody else. I was getting hurt a lot, so I was not playing. If I was playing, I was getting hurt, so I was in a cast. And So me putting all my eggs in the football basket, it wasn't working. So I was like, dang, I was very, depressed, had no hope at 15 years old. And some friends that I had, took pills from their parents' medicine cabinets, and they put them in front of me, and they were like, this will make you feel good. And, I said how I wasn't planning on using drugs and alcohol, but they told me that I would feel good, and I wanted to feel good because I didn't feel good. So that was the beginning there. And just from that first time, I knew how much I liked it. And I was like, oh, I need this. Like, this is going to be my peace. This is going to be my way of navigating through life and everything that it throws at me. I was just going to cling to it no matter what. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I first want to address how, as a little kid in elementary school and junior high and middle school, just not feeling good enough, a lot of external judgment. And I think for you, it was about not being Black enough, and just that judgment. And whatever it is, because all of us usually feel some kind of not good enough,
Right.
Whether we're not skinny enough or not good looking enough or not tall enough or smart enough or not good at sports enough. And I think that's something that most of us have in common with when we go back to our inner child space. And oh, by the way, for those listening and watching, we're going to give you a free guided visualization on healing the inner child's core wounds. So, because this is where it starts. Whatever our story is, whether we were adopted or, our parents were, hypercritical, or kids were judgmental because you're too fat, whatever it is, there is that beginning of not enoughness that I think most of us have in common. The story is different, but I think that begins there, a journey of self-abandonment, when everybody else's judgment, and we just want approval of other kids. We just want, a girl or a guy to like us. We just want our parents to, we want to, please our parents or just fit in.
Right.
And the gap of not meeting those expectations or being different in a way that is inconvenient for everybody else's opinions, there begins this story that I'm not enough. There begins this separation of self-abandonment, that I have to be something else or be different. You have to be more Black, or I have to be, more smart or skinny or whatever it is. And so I want to acknowledge that, for people tuning in, what was that, for you listening and watching, what was that thing where you didn't feel enough? Who were you trying to please? Where were you not enough? Because that begins a departure to an eating disorder, or like overcompensating in some way, or sedating in some way. Like that's the journey. That's where it starts. And then what I heard after that was a wound in your heart. Here comes a secondary wound of, wow, I just got betrayed. I got rejected. And I want to acknowledge like how deep that hurts, and how I think one of the things around betrayal at any age, whether that's at 6th grade or 25, 35, 52, whatever it is, like when somebody betrays you and there's a heart wound, it goes deep. It goes deep, and it hurts. And then oftentimes it's in front of everybody else.
Right.
So the embarrassment, that only did that person not choose me, but they didn't not choose me in private in a conscious way of like, hey, let's not be together and let's go our separate ways. But they didn't tell me they were unchoosing me. That's a big, like,
it's a body blow.
That's a body blow. I mean, and you get hit by 300-pound guys,
Yeah.
Like charging at you. I don't know how many miles per hour, right? Like that. And for you to call that a body blow is
Right.
saying something. That heart wound of the betrayal, that first of all, you didn't tell me, and you did it in public, with somebody else in front of everybody else. Like that hurts. And a lot of us, because we don't know how to be in relationship at 6th grade, we don't know how to be in relationship as adults. Jesus, like really.
Right.
So, that means there's going to be a lot of heart wounding exchanged, all of us, not only in elementary school, but all the way through, since we really don't know how to take care of each other's hearts.
Right.
That means that on top of whatever insecurities we're already dealing with, there's probably going to be some heart wounds in there from some form of rejection, and understandable, the need to want to numb. Let's just be honest, understandable, especially if we don't have the tools. And did you tell anybody how you were feeling when, in elementary school, when kids were saying that? Did you talk to anybody about it? Or did you talk about the heartache? Did you talk to anybody?
Nah, I just remember that, me having that girlfriend at the time, that was like the first one. And whereas all the, the kids that I was hanging around with at the time, like they were, they seemed to, chicks used to naturally flock to them. And I would be hanging out, where we all hang out, but, that would never really happen for me. So when that happened, it was kind of just like, put a Band-Aid on it and just get back in there, rub some dirt on it, and just get back to it. So if I were to talk about that, I feel like I would have gotten made fun of or been like, sorry, like you just don't cut it kind of thing. So I just try to drown that out and, get back in via overcompensating and trying to do things that weren't characteristic of me, just so I could get you to be like, hey, look at me, notice me,
Right. Choose me, like me. And
right.
I want to acknowledge that part that most of us deal with, because there's guilt and shame and fear if I do say something. So here's the third wound. If I do say something, the fear of being judged or made fun of, or rejected. And let's be honest, it's not a guarantee that if we do say something, that the person we turn to has the skills, the maturity, and the ability to actually coach us through self-confidence and honoring our individuality and learning how to guide us through our first broken heart. Most of us sedate, ignore, and just like you said, shove some dirt on it, get back in, overcompensate, and don't deal with it. And that begins the pattern of sedating, numbing, whether it's numbing from distraction, like I'm going to go be a great athlete, or great, I'm going to be super smart, or I'm going to just be super promiscuous and I'm going to hurt everybody else first. Or I'm going to shut down and I'm never going to love again, and I'll show you.
Right.
So we all kind of then in this overcompensating, we might numb with all kinds of different things, some with substance, some with overcompensating. So I like to explore what the roots of an issue are, because we're already looking at 3 or 4 different things that are creating a foundation. And this is why we're having this conversation, so that people tuning in can be like, where are my roots that are taking me in a way away from myself, or numbing something, or I'm not getting the support that I need for an issue I'm struggling with? Because I think stuffing our emotions and not talking about it is a big part of the problem.
The biggest part.
The biggest part. And it took you, at what age did you overdose? At what age was that for you?
I was 24, about to be 25.
Yeah, 24. That it takes that to get us to ask for help.
Right. And even then, I remember, after that, I was about to, the Baltimore the team was still getting my toxicology results, so they could still see all the drugs that were in my system. And they were like, we're going to set you up with an addiction therapist right away. And I went to the, addiction therapist, and he was like, they ran some tests on me. They're like, you need to go to therapy immediately. And I was like, I really have to go to therapy? I don't think it's that bad. That's still the thinking going on in my mind of I still find a way to justify suppressing and not showing the real picture of what's going on, or just owning where I'm at.
When we're not ready, we're not ready. And that's important for all of us to know, because that means other people that are not ready are not ready. You know, here probably parents, loved ones, coaches, different people on Baltimore team are like saying, hey, you need to look at this. You need to change this up. And it's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. Denial,
Right.
avoidance. And so when we're not ready, we're not ready. And so that means even after getting kicked out, it's like, I'm still not ready. Like, it's still not a big enough wake up call. And we're not, when we're not ready, we're not. And that's important for us to hear, so that we can be respectful of other people not being ready to make the change.
Right.
You know, I know that my sister, who frankly, when I was 12, it was pretty chaotic in my household. There was drugs and alcohol happening. And I was really like, ooh, this is gross. I don't like, something's not right, but everybody was older. And so at some point I was like, well, I guess this is what you do. And so I started smoking pot and drinking at 12, because there was drugs being dealt in the house. So, and my parents weren't saying anything. I'm like, hey, yoo-hoo, like, don't think this is right. So I didn't feel safe, and I felt like things were out of control. But I was looking up to my older sisters and brother, and I was looking up to my parents, and I'm like, nobody has the answers here. And it was really like scary, uncomfortable time.
Right.
So I just was like, okay, I'm going to just dive in. And so my sister was there when I was first getting stoned and first getting drunk. And I remember when I was in college and it was really starting to become a problem, she's like, hey, you've got an issue here. You know, you're drinking and you drove drunk last night. Not that I remembered even doing that, which is pretty scary.
Right.
You know, but she was one of the first ones, because in college, at least where I went to school, like, everybody's getting drunk and throwing up and blacking out. So I didn't think it was that odd, which is scary. You know, things have changed a bit since I've gone to college. But when everybody else is doing that, at least in the circles that you're walking within, you don't think it's that big a deal. You don't think it's that much of a problem when everybody else has those same problems, or it's hidden. And so when my sister was like, hey, I think you're drinking too much, I was like, screw you. You know, you got me drunk first. You know, you've been my party teacher. I'm not going to hear it from you. I was like, you know, F off. And I certainly wasn't ready to see it. And I certainly couldn't hear it from her. So when you're not ready, you're not ready. Okay, so when you started at 15, at this point, it's to numb the pain we were talking about.
Yeah. That was the main thing. And it also gave me the opportunity to, you know, make friends with these cool people that, you know, that weren't really accepting me before, but now that they saw that I was partaking in, you know, substances, you know, that was my pass to get in, like, oh, okay, like, you cool now, like, you can hang out with us. So it was those two things. And yeah, and that was just what I thought in the beginning. It was fine. Like, if I felt like it was cool, like, and then on the other side of it, like, I started to get bigger and stronger. So then I started playing on like the varsity teams, and, you know, people wanted to be around me because of that, because people knew who I was then. And so I just felt like when I started using that, my life got better. And so that even made the roots go even deeper for me, not wanting to give it up ever.
Because it got reinforced.
Right.
Yeah. Is that, oh, when I do this, when I say yes, I'm included, I'm liked, and there's a short-term performance enhancement, depending on what the substance is and depending on what's happening. But the thing is like, oh, but there's going to be drug tests. But there isn't necessarily drug tests in high school.
Right.
But there is in college, and there is in professional, for sure.
Right.
And it sounds like, since you were putting all your eggs in one basket with football, that there was also some extra pressure there to perform. Was there a lot of stress? Did you feel like in performance of expectations once you did started to, like, hey, I'm getting better at this? Was there a lot of expectation and pressure? Was it mostly given internal that you were putting on you, or were you getting that from other people as well?
Yeah, I was really putting it on myself to start, and that was already enough. And then once I was out there, you know, people were putting pressure on me, so it was coming from both really. And it was just very hard to deal with from the jump. And I remember, thinking that, if I really wanted to be who I wanted to be, like, I don't think I would have played sports after high school. I remember
Mm,
being in high school, like, not and really enjoying it, just playing out of anxiety and fear of not letting people down or people seeing me as, not good enough. Like I had to perform for them. But when it came down to just me loving playing the game of football, that just wasn't the case. And the pressure that I put on myself and the other people put on me only increased as I got into college and then into the NFL until, the levees broke.
Has that changed? Do you love football now? Is this really what you want to be doing?
Yeah, it is, because I remember, coming back from my suspension, I was like, I don't even really want to even go back. Like I felt good about, just going to meetings and coming back from rehab, and I was working at Sprouts Farmers Market. So I was like, I just felt good about what I was doing and just doing like honest work there. I just felt like football was too much for me at the time. But once I did the work, like spiritually and mentally and emotionally, I was able to see football for the game that I loved, like when I was a little kid.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I can go out there and it's like, I don't have to perform for you anymore. I can just be out there and enjoy myself and detach from the results and just, control the things that I can control and be loose and laugh and, put my own personality on things. And so now I can enjoy the game, even though, those temptations to allow other people to dictate how I view the game or how I approach the game are still there. But now I feel like I just have more tools to, make sure that I'm just doing it, for me, because I enjoy doing it. And the fact now that, people take inspiration from me in the way that I went about my journey. So I can think about them when I take the field and realize, like, on days where I may lack energy or focus, somebody is relying on me. They look at me on the TV and they get inspired to turn their life around. So I can take that with me as well. So it's all positive motivations now. And I'm just grateful to be in that mindset.
Yeah, that's a big change from 18 to 28. And let's be honest, there's a lot more pressure on, compared to 10 years ago when you're like, oh, am I going to be able to play for you? You went to Georgia Tech. Am I going to be able to play for a college? Am I going to get picked up? That's a lot different than the stress of playing professional ball, because there's absolutely more expectation, not only from the coaches, from the organization, but also from your other players, and from yourself. And what I heard is, I have more tools. I'm inspired by me and not by everybody else. And I do want to make a difference. I do love the game, and I'm doing it for myself. And there's also this secondary benefit of the inspiration of what's possible when you do the spiritual work, when you do the inner work, when you like really peel back all of the layers and all of the insecurities, and you come home to yourself again, and learn tools about how to stay loving and present and respectful with yourself, and not self-abandon again and again to accommodate everybody else. Because I know with my professional athlete clients, and one was like a decorated, Olympic athlete. If they don't bring home the gold or bring home the Stanley Cup or the ring, the championship ring, like, they're getting death threats. Mm. It's not like, oh, you don't get to be in the cool kids club. It's like hate mail. Mm. Like, that's legit. Right. Like, that's not high school judgment, rejection, hey, you jerk. It's like, hey, there's a lot of intensity at this level. Right. And so what is a tool that you've acquired in these last years, especially in these last 4 or 5 years, that helps you navigate stress and external expectation differently, so that you're not self-abandoning and losing yourself again?
It's just realizing I don't have to perform for the world, and that I don't have to be perfect along my journey. I can fail and fall short, but still be continuing to move along my process, and actually learn more about myself through those failures, because before it was like, feeling like I had to be perfect. Any small step out of line, any drop pass, any, mental error, would crush me because I needed you to validate every single thing that I did. But now that, I've been honest with myself and more self-aware now, of all these things like character defects that are still there, but here I am still, trying my best to make a positive impact on the world. I feel like I'm at one with myself there because I know now it's like, you don't have to get everything right. You don't have to, be all things to all people. You can go out there and just give your best effort and it'll work out for you in the end. So now it's like, before, like, criticism, any kind of criticism would break me. But now it's like, I know who I am. I'm not perfect. We can pull out my rap sheet and go through all the times I messed up. Mine might be longer than anybody's, but it's not about that anymore. It's just about what I'm trying to do going forward from this place. And it's just a lot less pressure on me. I can notice guys on my team, guys on other teams that are so tense out there. Like, I got to make this play. I got to support my family, or I got to make this team. I'm not trying to get cut. We realize whereas when I'm out there, I'm like, I feel like I'm playing with house money. Like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm just grateful to be here, to go out here and run around and play the game and be myself. I don't feel that same way I did before. That overdose cleared a lot of things out for me and really brought to the surface what was really important. And now I keep those things that are really important at the forefront of my mind when I go out there every single day. Because whether you write a good article about me, whether you drop a certain amount of plays for me, that doesn't really matter to me. I'm just trying to make the best of the platform that I have now and just keep things simple. And when I keep things simple, that's when I can have fun and laugh and go out there and goof around. And, throughout this whole process, people now consider me one of the best in the world at what I do. And it's just wild. And people ask me, how do you do it? How do you do this? And I'm just like, I can't even really explain it to people in a way without them looking like, what? It was,
there is something here, a shift from perfectionitis and external validation. And it just sounds like you're so free, Darren. It sounds like there's so much joy and freedom and a lot more spaciousness than I can't drop a ball. We've got we have to bring home a win. A lot of things you can't control, and it doesn't allow for the humanness, and it doesn't allow for mistakes, and it doesn't allow, because if you're not allowed to drop the ball, and dropping the ball happens. If you're not allowed, then just acknowledging what mental shift that takes that you take into the next play. That isn't like, okay, what did I do? What could I do differently? And okay, I dropped it. All right, I'm gonna catch the next one, or whatever it is. I'm gonna do my best today. And I think that shift for everybody to shift out of one perfectionitis, that I have to be perfect, because that might be another thing that we took on as a kid, that you can't get a B plus, or that you can't drop a ball, or that you can't have this much, you've got to have this much business and financial success, or that you can't have anybody break up with you ever, then that means you're a failure. I mean, like, right. It doesn't allow for life to happen.
Yeah.
Or the humanness. And so one is, I think, that shift from perfectionitis to, I make mistakes and it's okay. That doesn't mean I'm not worthy. It doesn't mean I can't learn from it. I mean, we were talking about on the podcast we did, you got to tune into that one on your comeback stories. We did a great podcast the other day about transformation and healing. And one of the things we talked about is being teachable, that it's okay to hear somebody else's judgment or their criticism or their advice, but still filter it through a sense of, I know who I am, and there may be some good advice, and it may not be good advice, or it may not fit. and that willingness to take it, to be open to it, but also be discerning about, is that in alignment? Is that true for me? Does this feel like a yes? And the willingness to honor yourself, even if other people will disagree or want you to make a different choice. So that sounds like that's been a big transformation of listening to self and trusting your intuition, still being coaching and open, but also a big filter on all the external noise and the external judgment, because there's no possible way any of us can make everybody happy.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way. The other thing that I think is interesting that you didn't say is that you really have nothing to lose. Right? Other people that have been in this, like, hey, I got to stay on the team, and I gotta renew my contract, or I got to keep these, I got to keep these endorsements, that are feeling a lot of pressure that they've put on, and everybody, their agents putting on, and all of that, is that you've already know what it's like to not have the money, not have the fame, and not be signed, and you were like really happy.
Right. Yeah. I felt better then than I did when, I was in the NFL and had access to women and any kind of, resources that, I was miserable there when I had all the things that people said I should have, and I'd be happy, and, my life would be this dream come true. And I was miserable. And so now I'm out there, I'm on the field, and it's like, you're right, I have nothing to lose. I don't have that fear, because it's like, the game has been taken from me before, and I know there's more to life than this game, period. This isn't the end all be all for me. Football isn't who I am. It's something that I do and I enjoy doing, and I want to do for a while, if Lord willing, if possible. But, I know I'm not promised too many days or too many more opportunities past the ones that I get today. So I just try to value the ones that I get in this day, to the utmost of my ability.
That is such good advice to hear, that I am not this role. It's just what I'm doing. And that's for everybody, whether you're looking at a career change, or your kids are leaving and you don't know who you are outside of that role of parent. They're leaving the house, or if somebody does break up, with you, or divorce you, that doesn't mean you are unworthy. This is just what you're experiencing. And I think what I'm hearing is that you get to reinvent yourself and not get too attached to the roles that you're playing today. It's not who you are. It's just what you're doing, whether that, whatever that is. There's more. The divine plan doesn't have you doing the same thing for your whole life. And like you say, divine willing, this is where you're meant to be, and where your story and your experience is helping others. And you won't be playing professional ball forever. Like, no one does play that hat forever. At some point, the knees don't work. At some point, you're like, you know what? There's somebody else faster than me. At some point, this will transition. And not everybody that is identified with life changes, and I'm okay with that. Those that are identified with things not changing, and I am this dollar amount, I am this role,
right,
have a more difficult time making life transitions, because we all will experience life transition, and retirement from a professional sport, or retirement from a company, or a business ending, or a relationship ending. We're going to need the tools to be able to not be so attached to that, so that we can make the transition, and that we know who we are, and that those external roles or dollar signs or relationship status doesn't define who we are.
Right. Today, I try to focus on the things that, people can't take from me. Like, somebody could walk up on me with a gun and take my car. Somebody could, hack my bank account and take all my money. They could, like you said, something could happen to me and my career could be taken away from me at any point. But, somebody, they can't take away, my soul or my spirit, or, the things that I'm working on in my mind and in my heart, those things can't be taken from me. I could be in prison, I could be buried alive, I could be anywhere, but I will still have those things in me that nobody can just come up on me and just take from me. So those are things that I try to fill up day in and day out. And surprise, surprise, they help me be a better player. They help me be a better podcast host, music artist, everything. And just knowing that, when that spiritual progress comes first, then the material stuff comes after that. But if you try to flip it, that's what I got caught up in doing for 25 years of my life. And I was just running around empty and, depleted because I thought that was the way to go, but it really wasn't. I had it all just completely 360.
And that's where the shift of what I hear you saying is like owning that and embodying that. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, it's like giving that power away,
right?
Giving that power away and giving that to fit in, getting that to be liked, getting that to get ahead, getting that to get, attention or validation or success or just that. And we're just giving that away, just a little bit bartering what is ours. And that's the flip is, no, I keep this. And if you don't like it, or if you don't align with that, then great. You don't need to be in my life. I don't need your approval. And there's so much freedom in that. Mm. So how do you set clear boundaries when people are knocking on the door with their expectation or their stress or their, projection or their judgment or their seduction, because there's still plenty of opportunities in your life to be lured into things that aren't in alignment, or that don't serve you. So because before you were afraid to be rejected and you weren't expressing that, how do you express boundaries now with people or situations that aren't in alignment with what your big yes?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now I feel like I have a vision for who I want to become in my life, who I want to be. Whereas before, just being in survival mode, I couldn't look down the road to like, who do I want to become? Because I was just trying to keep my head above water and just trying to get through the day. But now when, people approach me with things that are, mostly, temporarily satisfying, like from a women perspective, from a money perspective, from anything like that, like those are things that may make me feel good or feel warm for a couple seconds, a couple minutes. But then after that, I'll feel guilt and shame because I was so quick to compromise just for that little quick fix. Whereas now it's like, I don't want to remember myself as somebody that was super quick to jump to impress you instead of standing firm on who I am. And that may result in me being lonely for a little while because nobody can see it the way that I see it. Or, it may result in me being confused or questioning why things are happening or whether I have the endurance to see these things all the way through. But, I just look down the road and look at, I take death and try to use it as a positive and be like, when I'm reaching that point, because it's inevitable, how would I want to remember myself? And yeah. I feel like the touchdowns and the catches and all that, like those aren't the things that I'm going to readily remember. I'm going to remember, my character, whether I did the things that I said I was going to do, whether I really loved myself and took care of myself and was unapologetically me, as opposed to letting other people or letting, external sources dictate who I was going to be in one certain moment or not. I always wanted to, be someone that made the choice that was best for me.
Yes. What it sounds different about than what was 15 years ago is this space of having a GPS. What kind of a person do I want to be? What are my values and what's really important? And it didn't sound like that was really anchored in your youth. And I think that that's really valuable, because if you don't know where you're going and the values that are important to you, somebody else is deciding those for you. Just with the lack of awareness and the lack of commitment to it, you give that power away. And the person that has the most influence wins over your life, whether that is somebody saying, hey, come and have some drugs, or let's, let's be intimate, or whatever it is. And that level of self-inquiry and self-awareness, to be clear about who you are and what kind of person do you want to be, so that determines your yes and no when different opportunities knock on the door. And it sounds like you're playing the long game rather than what is more customary, especially with a man that's 18, 22, is like the now. Most of us are wanting to take short-term, satisfaction over long-term gain. And I think that's a maturity and a choice of integrity, to know what you want and what you're going for, because that helps you make your decisions. So you get to be really good at saying no, don't you?
Yeah. I'm just now starting to realize the power of that, in getting away from that place of not wanting to disappoint, because that was huge for me. I didn't want to step on your toes because I needed your validation. I couldn't afford to be rejected again at any moment in time. Like, I had to have you on my side. So if there was something that was eating away at me, or something that needed to be said, something that needed to be expressed, I was willing to suppress that, just so that, if you had a good standing opinion of me, that could be kept. And living like that just becomes exhausting. And then you start to beat yourself up for it, because deep down inside of you, there's truth there. And that truth, it doesn't sit right with that truth. There's a siren going off in there when you do it. Like, I could sit here and smile, but inside, that's not what's really going on. So it's
and
just,
that score is being kept. There is a scorekeeping of every time we self-abandon, because guilt and shame. Now the betrayal, now it's not that person betrayed me by cheating on somebody else. This is, I betrayed me. And I did it over and over again. And this is where we see so many people in a place of fame and financial means, because they don't want to disappoint people. People are knocking on the door for loans and, hey, invest in this business, or come out and party with me, or, do this or that. And if we don't have a great ability to say no, and we want to please everybody and accommodate everybody, there goes your sleep, there goes your money, there goes your reputation, all of the things that matter to you. And you're like, well, great, I have their approval, but I have nothing now. And I don't respect who I am, and I'm mad at everybody. That's the other thing. When we're like self-abandoning, we're not taking accountability for those choices. Then it's, hey, they took my money, they made me do drugs, that woman seduced me. And there isn't accountability for, no, I made the choice, or I didn't honor my truth. And I didn't want to disappoint them. So that's a big one that, we see happen all the time with people that are in a position of fame and influence and financials, financial abundance, is that, you can have a lot of people knocking on the door for all kinds of reasons. Some are in alignment, and some are just to get what they want from you. Right? I mean, it's a story that's happened over and over again. And so, because of exactly what you said, not knowing the values of who we want to be, and not knowing how to honor self over being the accommodator. A lot of us don't know how to do that. We're still playing very much the accommodator. And that's a costly move. That's a costly choice. And it's wonderful to hear that you're so rooted in that. And that doesn't mean that we're not tested on this like often. And, I self-abandoned there, or I should have said no, but I said yes. And that, it becomes a daily awareness to be able to keep practicing these things, because, it's a journey, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always tempted to go back into my older ways of thinking, and thinking that, I got this under control. Like, this is nothing. Like, and it's just that ego that gets in the way of me thinking that I know everything and that I can figure everything out, instead of realizing that, hey, I don't know everything, and just realizing that, literally everything like that I crave as a person, like comfort and pleasure. But the things that have really brought meaning and purpose into my life are the opposite of those. It's like going towards things that are, uncomfortable, like me sharing my story publicly. Like I wasn't planning on doing that. But when I did that, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a voice, when, going back to football, I didn't plan on doing that, but that gave me a platform to have a voice, to be able to speak to people and to use that platform for good and to present an authentic picture of a human being that can be successful, but also go through hard things. So it's just from that perspective of, I just want things to be as easy as possible as a human being in my mind. But if I go the way that's harder and go the way for myself that's, more uncomfortable, I'll respect myself more for going that route. And the gifts that will come from that and the things that I'll learn will be so much more valuable than any material thing that would have come if I went the other way.
Yeah. I mean, that's being conflict avoidant versus being willing to put in the work. And it doesn't always have to be hard. We don't always have to take the hard path.
Right.
Transformation and healing, it can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be as hard as we think it is. And it gets easier when we have the tools. It gets better. You've experienced the momentum of putting in the time and reaping the benefits of, doing the work, which initially was, tough, and it gets easier. And what I'm really respecting is the humility that keeps coming up of, I don't always have all the answers, and I do need to, keep an eye on that ego and be willing to do the difficult things. What was it like when you were in that denial place where you knew a drug test was coming and you don't care, walk us through what was going on. What was the inner dialogue like during that time, like right before your lowest of low?
Yeah, when it came to the drug test, it was like an absolute war going on inside of me. Like one side was the ego of, I'm about to beat this. I'm about to pull the wool over these people's eyes. The joke's on them. Like I'm the one that's in control here. I'm pulling the puppet strings. But the other side was, fear of what would happen if, I got caught, fear of the consequences and it being public, and then also the guilt and disgust that was already building from me deciding to go this route of rebellion and, trying to fight everything. So it was just all those things always conflicting. And so that's what would throw my moods and stuff all over the place. And eventually I was doing that so much that I just got sick of myself. And I was just like, that's what I did in the NFL. I failed at least like 100 drug tests in the NFL, and I sabotaged myself on purpose. I was like, I'm just about to fail every test until they put me out the league. So I don't look like a quitter. Like I just want to be done with this. And so I literally just go on those tests then and just fail them on purpose. And so that ego side would be like, yeah, I'm doing this on purpose. Y'all don't even know. Like, this is just what it is. Like, y'all can't even think on this level. But then the other side was just like, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you throwing this away? Like, why is this sick game? How are you deriving joy from this? But you can't be happy about anything else. And there's just those two just always colliding at all times, which just left me in a place where I just wanted to numb those out even more. And it was just an extremely vicious cycle that, I couldn't even really explain to people at the time. I remember a coach I had in Baltimore was telling me like, he's like, you're not mentally tough. Like you're not mentally tough. And I was just like, I didn't even know how to respond to it, because it was like, I know there's mental toughness in here that I can tap into. But right now it's just like, I didn't even really know what was keeping me in that place that I was in. I was so afraid to change because I knew it would take work, and I wasn't into doing work. I was into making excuses at that time. So it was just inner turmoil.
I thank you for that, because it helps me, to understand that the guilt and the level of arrogance and denial,
Right.
so that goes hand in hand when we're holding on to whatever's holding us together. Because at that point, it's holding you together, even though it's what's it's going to crumble everything. The drugs and alcohol, whatever, are actually kind of holding it together in some ways, because there isn't mental toughness. I don't have the tools. I don't have the emotional maturity. I don't actually have the tools to handle the stress, to overcome the insecurities. Haven't gotten there yet. And so it's not just a matter of I have to mentally tough this out, because those core wounds haven't been dealt with. It's not just a matter of going at it with the head. And, addiction isn't just, oh, I just have to cut off the hand and the claw won't reach for it anymore. Underneath addiction is, what is the addiction about? What is underneath it? What is the pain? What is not healed? What is the insecurity? And, healing that. And then what are the tools to navigate so I don't have to reach for drugs and alcohol? I need tools, I need resources, I need confidence and a voice, boundaries. And it's not just a matter of being mentally tough, of you should just quit this, because
right.
it is, just as we see with a lot of times where rehab doesn't work, is when that's the happen. Okay, well, I'm going to quit drinking, but now I'm going to start smoking, or I'm just going to become a sex addict and it just goes somewhere else, or I'm going to gamble, and the original wounds don't get healed, and I don't learn a new tool or a new way of navigating my stress or my insecurity. So it just creates a different form. And so you can't bypass doing the inner work. You can't bypass doing the inner work, which I acknowledge at that point, you did not have the means to do the inner work and not know how to ask for it, or definitely not ready to ask for it, because it's like that. And what I heard, which is really interesting, is hearing that this internal battle of arrogance, but also, you idiot, like the inner critic, just a lot of guilt and shame, what's wrong with you, and that inner bullying, perfectionitis, that also perpetuates more addiction, because when we feel that bad about ourselves, we just want to sedate. And for some people that's eating, for some people it's shopping, sex, pornography, work. There's lots of socially acceptable ways to numb how bad we feel about ourselves sometimes. And so I hear, hey, I'm going to get them to do it rather than me. I'm going to get them to kick me out. Right? Interesting, right? Right. And so then here comes the shit show after that, right? Because now here's more. The tabloid, like the press, and I would imagine without the coping skills to deal with that, no wonder the sedation kind of amplified after that, after you left, after they released you. What did it feel like after?
Yeah, just felt like a letdown, felt like, kind of all of the above, really. Just, didn't feel like I was enough, felt like the kid, it's like all these things that I tried, all these things that, I thought were working, and, trying to impress people, and, doing the drugs and all these things that I thought worked really didn't work. I'm really back in the same square one, the same emptiness, hopelessness, fear that I was when I was a little kid. And now I'm just, older and, more just mentally beaten up and exhausted than I ever had been before. So it was just a place of, I just didn't want to be there. Take me out of this place.
And then everybody's looking at with their pity and their judgment. That doesn't help either, Right. So what happened after the overdose?
I moved out of my apartment in Baltimore and was back in Atlanta, and I went to go see the addiction specialist, and, they told me to go to rehab, and I was kind of like, is all that necessary? Kind of just, my arrogance. And, but I was like, yeah, I'll probably go. And I went home and talked to my parents about it. And then they shared about my family history and how much addiction and alcoholism was on both sides, and how it kind of, tore through a good bit of my family. And my mom was, very, disappointed, and, was like, do you want to end up like your uncles and all of them, or are you going to be the one that, changes the course and breaks generational curses in the family? So it's just that overdose experience. And then, being challenged by my family and seeing that. And that was the first time I could ever really have any kind of vision. Like I talked about before, it was like I had a vision of my family and everybody just being broken, and then me seeing that and continuing that brokenness. But I wanted to change that vision and be someone that could make a difference. And that's what I went into rehab on. That was my fuel. And, rehab ended up being an unbelievable experience. It just changed the game for me completely.
I want everybody here to hear that, just that whether it's rehab with drug addiction or alcohol or whatever it is, or it's an eating disorder or a sex addiction or just depression, or wherever you're hitting a wall, that it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to get the support you need to heal the wounds or to learn the tools that you don't currently have. Like, it's okay. And I acknowledge that you were driven by your bloodline karma. And that's a pretty heavy weight to carry. Okay, Darren, son, are you going to be the one that stops this pattern, as if you've got to stop this for the whole family? Like, that's a lot to carry. And, when I do bloodline work, yes, you can stop the pattern, but that doesn't mean that you're responsible for every choice for uncle, grandmother, grandfather. And, it can feel like a heavy burden because you're just stopping the pattern for you. Right. And that's all you need to do, is stop the pattern for you. And that stops it in the family, but it doesn't undo the choices of our parents, our grandparents, and siblings, because a lot of times people feel like I've got to fix everything that my ancestors messed up. Right. And that isn't the case. You can only fix what you've messed up. I can only fix what I've messed up. And I'm not responsible for what my ancestors did. We can be aware of the propensity, because alcohol and drug addiction runs in my family too. And I can be aware of the propensity, and I can say no. I can choose no. And that's employing my will. You employed your will. So today, are you doing this for you? Who are you doing this for today?
Yeah, I mean, it's really for me. Like, I was just going to add to the, when I went to rehab, they laid tools at my feet, and from there on, it was up to me to pick them up and use them. And that's kind of how I viewed the whole family situation. It's like you said, I'm not responsible for changing all the people. I just, through my experience, I have these tools that I can lay at their feet and be like, when you're ready and you feel like trying them, check these out. And then from there, they can make that decision. So I'm just there just to present them, not to force any change, not to make that change happen. So today, that's where I feel more at peace, when I can just focus on, doing things for me and knowing that I don't have to do anything extra to inspire somebody else. If somebody wants to take something from my story, they can do that on their own. That's their own decision. It's not about me getting the limelight and me being the reason somebody changes. It's just about them changing, and however they get there is how they get there. So, we all need to do it for ourselves.
That's really important, is that level of the invitation. And, you 5 years ago, didn't matter how many people maybe gave you the invitation, you weren't ready. And for me, it was 20 some years ago now, where I quit alcohol, and it was on my terms, my choice. And if anybody had tried to guilt or shame or bully me into letting go of alcohol, I would be in jail for sure, for like murder.
Right. No.
Like, if you would try to take that alcohol away, like, I would just, like, seriously, when you're not ready, you're not ready. And guilt and shame and bullying or trying to force somebody, that doesn't make anybody more inspired. It just, they feel worse, like that
Right.
guilt and shame spiral that we were talking about before. It's just, I realized that, judging one of my family members for not being able to kick drugs and alcohol, even though my heart was there and I wanted to help them, packaged, wrapped in judgment and shoulds, certainly, I'm sure it just increased their drug use. Like, when I'm really being honest about it, even though my heart was in the right place, the execution was a lot of, control and judgment, and they probably felt worse about themselves. And so it's just staying in your own lane about somebody else's choices. Not that we don't care, but you're the one that chose to go to rehab, and you chose to pick up those tools and implement them, and you're the one receiving the benefits. And it really is, your life has turned around so much. And what are you grateful for about to yourself 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, about putting in the work? Like, what do you want to say to that version of you that made the choice of rehab? What would you like to say to yourself now, enjoying the benefits of those choices today?
To my younger self, I would just like to say thank you for taking that chance. Thank you for finally, making the decision to come back to who you truly are and make decisions for just you and not anyone else. Being willing to put the world on hold for over a month, and everything that you think is important, everything that you think you're missing out on, to put that stuff on hold because deep down now that you really need this time, this help, these resources. So I would just like to say thank you to him, and just say, look where we are now, even through all the success and things that we're having now. My character and my integrity hasn't been compromised just because, I have a certain amount of money in my bank account, or, a certain amount of people know my name or walk up to me when they see me. I'm still the same person, and someone that, is humbled every single day, because when like we just talked about, we look at other people's situations, it humbles me because I remember that I was just like them. I remember I was lost and terrified and miserable, and that wasn't too far away. I'm not immune to feeling that way again. So I'm just grateful for, the ways that I decided to just put myself into this process of loving myself and going on a spiritual journey. I'm just grateful for that kid amidst everything that was going on. To make that decision was, something that is not only impacting me, but impacting, people that come in contact with me.
Yes, I think that that's super valuable, to pause and thank the courage, and even the 15-year-old that did his best,
Right.
and the 22-year-old, it just, hey, if drugs and alcohol is what you went to because you didn't have another tool, like, I forgive you, I love you, I accept you, and thank you for doing your best, and, like, I got you. What do you think your future self 5 years out would say to you today? What encouraging words do you think your future self, even stronger, even more a pillar of light, even more in his heart, even more, making a difference in walking his soul path, whatever that looks like, unattached, whatever it looks like, just feeling your energy amplified 5 more years, living a spiritual, like, on purpose path? What do you think that version of you, what advice would they have for your today version?
I think they would say, just keep showing up for yourself. You don't have to have this thing all figured out, and you never will. You'll never be a finished product. You don't have to have anything perfected right now. You don't have to, be the absolute best at something. You just have to, it just has to sit right with you, the effort that you're putting forth and the attitude in which you're going about your life. And if you stay on top of those things, then the results that you're looking for are going to come your way. And if they don't look like what you think they'll look like, it's probably because the way that it's being presented to you is even better for you. You're learning more, you're growing more from the results that you do get. So just keep showing up for yourself. You don't have to have the master plan. It doesn't mean that, some fear or some doubt might not creep in, because it will, because you're human. Those things will never go away. It's just about how you respond to those things. So, man, just keep showing up, and you're going to be amazed by the things that happen from you just continuing to put yourself in the process every single day and not want to run from it.
That's good advice for everybody, always. Just stay with it, keep doing, stay with it, and just keep showing up. Keep showing up, keep doing the work. Don't expect perfection. You don't have to know all the answers. And that's great, great advice. When you were here the other day, because we dove into a lot. We were together for a few hours, and now you know me, and like Anahata stuff, Mama Hata. I go by lots of different names. I go deep and like honest and gentle, but real. Like that about me now.
Right.
And like in minutes, like going deep, like within minutes of meeting, like going deep. And what is something that helped you? Because we had some talking first, and you and Donnie and I were just kind of dropping in with what issues are up, and then we went in and did like super phenomenal shamangelic breathwork journey. So what is something that helped you from our time together, and something that you took away from that?
Just from our time together, it was amazing. It was something that, another thing that I learned, just in addition to going back to my former self, was realizing that, I can no longer justify self-sabotage. I thought that in relationships, and even with the whole process with me getting suspended by the league, something in my mind thinks that if I just destroy something, blow it up, then like somehow it'll be like it never existed, and then I can just move on in peace. But in reality, the memories of whatever that was will still always be there, in addition to the guilt and shame that I feel for just destroying something, or thinking that I knew what was best for me when I really didn't. So that was something that I definitely took away, that it's not about finding a way around something. It's about, finding a way through it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, there's no shortcuts there in that way. There's no shortcuts, where we gotta face and be accountable for, some of the messes that we've made, whether we were unconscious or immature or didn't have tools. Yeah. Like going through that. And what else is something that, like, during the journey, that what you experienced?
Well, I got my little worksheet right here. I got about a page and a half of notes.
You had lots of notes. You wrote so small. I'm like, you are getting a lot down here.
Right. One of the things I wrote down, from the breath work, when we first woke up into that journaling, I said, my heart was trying to tell me that it wants connection, but not just any connection. And so that was just me. Like, I just wanted anybody to connect with me, like anybody to feel good about me, anybody to appreciate me. Whereas now, where I've, laid a different foundation and am setting a higher standard for myself and what I'm accepting from myself, I accept a higher standard of connection, with other people as well. I'm not just settling anymore. I did a lot of settling in my life, and that's just not something that I feel comfortable doing anymore, just because it doesn't feel right inside of me. So it's just knowing that, I can say no to a connection. Like before, it was like I couldn't afford to. It was like anything I could get my hands on, anybody that would come into my vicinity and want to be around me, like I had to just hold them close and not let them go anywhere, or hold an experience or an opportunity close and not let it go anywhere, because I didn't know if I would have another opportunity down the road. So now it's valuing myself to the point where I can say no to people, I can say no to opportunities, and know that, the best is still lying down the road for me.
Yeah, that level of quality important, because it sounds like the same kind of thing about, well, I want to fit in with the cool kids, so I'll take drugs. It's the same kind of thing.
Right.
I just want them to like me and include me, rather than, no, I want somebody that like a deep love connection, that actually is here for me
Right.
and can be themselves, and I can be myself, and that level of vulnerability and depth, rather than lots of shallow experiences.
Right.
Cool. And what about that, going back to your 14, 15-year-old version of yourself? How did that feel like? Because I remember you sharing in your journey, you like went back to him, like
Yeah.
this younger version of yourself. And what was that like in your journey?
Yeah. I could see him. And I could, see myself walking up to him and, you know, just kind of put my arm around him and just kind of walking through like the timeline of events that has happened in my life, and kind of explaining to him with a new sense of clarity, um, you know what I was thinking, and kind of why I made those decisions, but now like how I'm operating from just a different space, and just showing to him like, you don't have to go and try to impress them. They aren't, they trying to figure out how to love themselves in the process too. They're dealing with the same things you are. So, you might as well just be yourself. And then, with the football, it's just like, no amount of performance will ever give you healing or give you, inner satisfaction. It's not about performing for that satisfaction. It's about having that satisfaction and approval from yourself, and then performing because you already feel that way. And so that just going through with my inner self, and then just him going like, oh, okay, like, yeah, like I get it. Like this guy really knows what he's talking about now. Like
Some smart dude. Where you been?
he's on his way now. So, but yeah, that
It's
was just a
really
great
sweet.
experience.
That is the inner child healing, where we go back to our inner child, whether they're 6, 15, 18, 12, 3, and just hold them, guide them, let them know that, I'm here now. I'm not leaving you. I'm here now. And I love that, this image of you putting your arm around him, like, I got you. I got you, bro. And I'm not going to leave you again.
Right.
And filling in the gap, this is for all of us. This is why we're doing that inner child healing guided visualization, so that we can go back to that wounded, lost, afraid, insecure, overcompensating, like tender, hurt version of ourselves, abandoned version of ourselves, whatever our experiences have been, and go back to that version and just hold them without judgment, without criticism, with just compassion, and give them the love, safety, protection, advice, and good guidance and compassion that we wished we would have had. And now that we're on the other side of it, we can go back to that version of us and give them some guiding advice, and be like, like you said, hey, you don't have to go do that. You're enough, and you can make mistakes. It's going to be okay. And I think that that's what's really healing, is that it's not about judging, that I should have known better, I should have done better, but a lot of compassion and forgiveness for the part of us that did our best, but also then fill in the gaps. Give that version of you advice, because you're going to be having the same issues, just with different environments. You're going to have the same like nervousness around girls. It just looks different today. But
Right.
unless the issues are resolved and you change it, then the same issues are happening. It's just a different environment with bigger stakes. And that's why going back to do the inner child is, healing is so, the shadow work is so important, so that we can evolve it and the patterns stop. Because otherwise we just continue having shallow relationships. We just keep self-abandoning. It just looks different as an adult, even if we're sober. Like, okay, no more
Right.
drugs, but it's like, if I still haven't figured that out, still going to self-abandon and choose shallow relationships or accommodate everybody.
That's been most of my sober journey.
Yep.
Is that what you just explained? Relationships that, like you said, I'm not using drugs anymore, but you know, I can cope through these relationships, or, having them here will give me that high, and just like, abandoning other people, but then coming back to them because the feeling of them wanting me was always comfortable, and just getting
Right.
caught in another cycle. It wasn't the cycle of the drugs and doing that, but it was just that a whole different cycle that I was able to create on my own. So it's just realizing, like you said, it's not having to reach for anything except reaching inside. Um, so yeah,
And
that
from
just hit
that
the nail on the
place,
head
you
for
make your
me.
choices. From that place, you attract people that align, and you get
Yep.
to be great at saying no so that you can
Right.
say
Just
yes to the things that really matter. Cool. Well, what is one of your favorite tools or parting advice that you have for people? Because I know you're doing your work, and you're still doing your work. I'm still doing my work, and it's a journey for sure. And I really just want to celebrate everything that you've already learned in these past few years. And you're definitely in the classroom putting these things to the test, and I am too. So thank you for that. What what is something that you've learned or advice that you would have for people that are in this process trying to figure it out?
um, I would just say you got to create the time in your day to sit with yourself, to meditate. In this world where we always gotta grind, 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 accomplish something, achieving something. Um, Through that and within that, we can lose ourselves. And if we don't take that time to just check in with ourselves and to see, how our bodies are feeling or what our thoughts are going through our mind, we're going to go through life with a million things, in the trophy case. But when it's just us looking in the mirror, there's going to be something missing. That void is still not going to be filled. And the only way to get towards filling that void is to, I feel like, is to have a meditation practice, because that sitting meditating just allows you to sit with the truth, to just be there. It's not about fixing yourself, it's just about being aware of what's going on in you, and once you're aware, from there you can make changes. And so that's what it's all about for me. It's just becoming aware of who you are, because we spend so much time with a lack of awareness, thinking that we're doing something, thinking that we're balling, thinking that we're happy. But in reality, we are miserable. We are longing for something more. We are, trying to reach for something to numb things out. But once we become aware of those things, then, we don't appear as crazy as, we think we are. We just are more in touch with just humanity, because what we share on a basic level is adversity and struggle. So, once we sit with those things and accept that truth about ourselves, from there we can change it, from there we can grow, and to have a new vision for who we want to be. But it starts with just creating that time. So create time for yourself in the day. It's meditating, it's having a creative outlet, it's doing things that you enjoy just because you enjoy them, and not just for the success or the check or anything of that nature. But it's just how much of the things that you're doing in your day are for you alone. And that started with meditation for me.
Yeah. I love that you have really prioritized meditation and stillness and self-awareness so that you can feel your emotions, or you can hear the inner dialogue, and then that informs, hey, do I need a tool? Do I need support? Does something need to change? Is there something out of alignment? Because that self-inquiry gives us information about what needs to change, or if there's something that is growing, or that you need to let go of, or needs to shift in some way. Great advice. And also to play, enjoy life for you on your terms. Do what you love.
Right.
Do what you love. That's great advice. And you're doing it. I can feel, in this connection, I can feel this light in you, Darren. I can feel that you're loving football again, and that you're loving, making a difference in supporting other people through this process. I feel that there's an aliveness that is really beautiful and contagious and authentic. So well done, brother, for everything that you're doing to really come back to your original soul essence, even more powerful, even more clear, and even more in your authentic, beautiful, heart-centered essence. It's doing wonderful things like your foundation. So tell us about your foundation and what inspired this, and how people can get involved, and then we'll close up with where they can find you and so forth.
Yeah, the Darren Waller Foundation started around the beginning of 2020, and it was just, one of the greatest things I learned on my recovery journey is that I feel best when I'm giving back. I feel best when I'm being of service, and I felt like this was a way for me to really impact the community and to really leverage, the voice that I have, because, hey, the reality of it is people are going to listen to me because I do a certain thing. I can catch passes and do it at a high level. So people are going to pay attention to me. So with that platform, how am I going to use that? And I wanted to use it in a way that impacts people and allows them to have, an experience to draw from, to where when they face situations that are similar to mine, and where I chose drugs and alcohol, they can choose other coping mechanisms, mindfulness, creative outlets, really being honest, therapy, talking things out. So that's what I want to do. And we're serving in the Las Vegas, Nevada community right now, and starting with, grants and programs to send people to treatment for people that can't afford it. Creating an online community for students in the Clark County School District with positive content, areas for them to connect and talk to each other. So, just doing things like that, but mainly with the idea of serving young people, because we know that substance abuse is an avenue for everyone to take, whether they're taking it right now or, it's available to them. So I want to be able to, put tools in front of these young people and let them know that they don't always have to choose the route that I took. And that's the purpose behind it.
Oh, it's so valuable. And everything that we just unpacked, today about giving voice to insecurity, the reasons why we would go to drugs, insecurity, not feeling enough. If we look at Vegas, there's going to be many different cultures and mixed cultures. So people are not going to feel Black enough, Asian enough, white enough, everything that you were saying earlier, because there's a lot of people with different socioeconomics and different cultural background, different religion. Like, it is a melting pot in Vegas, and
right.
Like, giving voice to the issues that we were just uncovering, not feeling enough for some reason, whatever that is, and, social pressures to be a certain way or to do something, and how to navigate crushes and heartbreak and disappointment. And if somebody rejects you, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, and like how to love yourself, even if there's rejection by somebody. And so that way it helps people have the tools before they even reach for drugs. And I love that you are, providing grants and support for the kids that are already, down that rabbit hole of addiction, and, that don't have the means to get out of that. And then also the tools to help them, get sober, but the tools to navigate stress and social pressure in a different way, because now you and I both know what's behind the reach, the issues that precede, whether we're a young adult or an adult, because we're experiencing this as adult. Like you were saying, hey, okay, I know I don't want drugs, but here comes a certain fertile environment for that to sneak in.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that positions you very perfectly to be the voice for this. Not just, hey, don't do drugs, but hey, be yourself. You're enough. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to please everybody. And like hearing those things that you just said to your 14-year-old, 15-year-old self, hearing those things can help people feel like they have that support and understanding where they don't have to overcompensate or, depart from who they are to please other people. And you're so close to these issues now, you can speak to them with another level of authority, not just, hey, don't choose drugs, but you're enough,
right.
So good. So grateful for everything that you're doing. I got your back, brother. You know that. And
I appreciate you.
I
For
feel
real.
that. I feel that. And whatever I can do to continue to support you, being a pillar of light, and wherever it gets wobbly, wherever you need a friend, wherever you need a sounding board, wherever you need to celebrate a victory or support with your foundation, I just want you to know that you've got a sister that believes in you, that is always unconditionally here for whatever is happening in your life. Got your back.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
So where can people find you? Where can they find the foundation, and where can they follow you and your journey? Oh, and tell them about the podcast too.
Yeah. So you can find me personally on Instagram. My Instagram name is Rackwall, RACKKWALL. Foundation information can be found at darrenwaller.org. Links to donate, future events, programs that we're putting into place can be found there. And then our podcast, shout out to Donnie for introducing me to you. Donnie is my guy. We both co-host a podcast called Comeback Stories. Pretty self-explanatory on the title. You will be a future guest on there, which I think a lot of people will benefit from. But anywhere you like to listen and get your podcast from, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere, Comeback Stories is on there. Check us out, subscribe, and we feel like you'll be inspired positively for listening to it, just like you're being inspired by listening to Shamangelic Healing podcast. We feel like we're, pretty much on the same path to just wanting to provide healing and hope to people, no matter what their situation looks like.
Yes. Thank you for doing that, because we need to hear it from different angles, because
Right.
we'll relate to different people's stories. I love that your whole podcast is comeback stories, because we can relate to, maybe we can't relate to the exact experience, but we can relate to the challenge and the struggle and the willingness to choose something else than we've been choosing. So thank you so much. I love you, brother. If this podcast was powerful, inspiring, if you got a pearl, if you got a nugget, please let us know. Leave us a rave review. We want to hear in the comments what was powerful, what was inspiring. Please share it, subscribe, and let this message reach others. So please pass it on. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Darren, for everything that you're doing. We know you are the one to watch this fall, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the field and seeing what magic and joy that you're bringing to the Raiders. Because, even though you may be one of the younger players, I think you're one of the more solid, heart-centered players, and that's really powerful on a team. So it'll be interesting to see how that really affects the rest of the team, what you're bringing to the table. And so have a great season, and just continue doing what you're doing, shining your light. And we love and appreciate you. And we'll see you back here in Sedona soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you.